St. Croix Falls, no, yeah, St. Croix Falls, Wisconsin, just across the river, and started writing this book. Anyway, the main thing that was going to happen that summer wasn't really the book. It was my sister Lynn, and her suicide. I remember mom calling me crying July 4th, actually, and telling me that Lynn had hanged herself, and she was actually not completely dead. She was on life support in a coma. And as she's telling me this voice whispers in my ear, pay attention. Okay, so a short while later, I'm talking with my sister in Seattle, Washington. She's a professor out there at the time. And we were talking about coordinating flights. She'd fly through Minneapolis and we'd fly together back east to help my mom be in vigil with my little sister. And Jody, bless her soul, she says to me, would you consider doing me a favor and not coming home? And she explained to me how she had always been like the invisible one in the family, the middle child. And I had always been my mom's favorite, you know, being like her friend and surrogate therapist of sorts and stuff. So she, you know, if I was there, then I'd get all the attention. I'd be the big shot, whatever. So she wanted a chance to be something, do something in the family. So she asked me if I would not come back. So I'm like, okay, I was paying attention. So the voice asked me to stay there. And because of that, I was able to go through this really amazing process. I remember riding my bicycle every day, crying for me, for my sister, for all of the pain of our lives. You know, her suicide really was just evidence of a childhood that was quite traumatic, quite tragic. And she wasn't able to heal from it. You know, here I'm getting the opportunity now. Now I'm 3 years plus sober. I remember even thinking to myself, wow, you know, Lynn made one choice that was obvious when you're carrying that much pain. You can literally die, or in my case, you could consciously die and stay in the body. You know, dying to all that old paradigm, all that old garbage. I remember even talking to my sister once saying, you know, God loves you so much, right? Because of her spiritual inclination and the work in the 12 steps. And she goes, yeah, I do know that. I do know that God loves me. And I said, so why can't you let go of the fact that your father, your dad, is not capable of loving you? In fact, he does everything he can to hurt you. And that was her problem. That was the dilemma. It's like, yeah, I know God's love, but I'm haunted by this lack of love from my own father. So I was able to write a letter to her some days later. It came to me in the night telling her, you know, you have a choice. We were like best friends, being the two youngest. And either let go of this burden, you know, you don't have to carry the burden for our family any longer, or let go of the burden and come back into the world, or set yourself free and just let this lifetime go. And she did. So it was pretty amazing even to hear the story about my eldest sister reading the letter to Lynn while the three of them, my two sisters and my mom, watched. And she relaxed. She'd been in a real angry coma. Her fingers clenched really hard, and her face in a grimace. And she relaxed her face and opened her hands, and she had like these stigmata marks from her fingernails going into her skin for many days. She relaxed and she let go. So she was gone. And the next year I was able to give her, I shouldn't say, I'm sorry, the next year, the next month, able to give her eulogy. And again, a remarkable experience where I had to totally surrender. I had to totally, you know, consciously die to the idea that I had any clue what I was going to say. I remember I had tried to make notes and it was all like crazy. And I just knew it was impossible. I just had to get up there and just trust that something was going to come through me. And I remember we were sitting in the family area while people were coming into the chapel, because we hadn't lived in this town for a long time. We expected a pretty small turnout. Well, we were totally wrong. Everybody came, and they had to move the service to the main sanctuary. So that took another 15, 20 minutes to get everybody in the flowers and whatever moved finally it was our time to get up there. And I remember after a piece of music that it was my time to get up and give the eulogy. And I stood up there for a moment and I was shaking so badly. I had a little glass of water on the podium there, and I couldn't even get it to my mouth. I was shaking so badly. So I put it down. I just looked out over the audience. And I remember just thinking like, wow, this is such a remarkable opportunity because everybody's there. All the neighbors, all the school kids, anybody from my past that and it's amazing how you can recognize somebody 20 years later. They were all there, all the teachers, all the neighbors, just everybody was there, including, of course, all my family, my uncle, and seeing him crying, seeing my dad crying. And I remember just as I watched my father crying, just feeling this thing now I call the hush of heaven come over my heart. And as I'm looking over the sea of people in the back row, there's a enthusiastic man who he always took the form of forget his name now, Robert Conrad from Wild Wild West, a hero of mine as a kid. Jesus took that form. So here's Robert Conrad in the back going, "You're going to be great. You're going to be great. Give me the thumbs up." And I remember just relaxing and then starting to talk about how this was a day of celebration, about how Lynn's life was marked by this incredible honesty that is so rare in our world. And this is why, she had to do what she did, because, she was honestly experiencing this incredible pain, the pain of life that most people numb over with alcohol and drugs. And she tried that plenty. She was a drug addict and alcoholic and all that as well. And she tried many times going through treatment and many times failing. In fact, she hung herself on the eve of being let out of a 3-month treatment center focused on mental illness and drug addiction. It's like the world was too much. And so this again was something that's to me, so important that we learn to sort of consciously die to all the bullshit that says, oh, no, this is how you have a happy life. It doesn't work. What the conditioning of the world teaches us does not work. Those of us that are honest enough to see that it doesn't really work. Okay, we have to take another path, which is either exit the planet or consciously die to the bullshit and have something real. Okay, so I remember thinking to myself after that eulogy, and people were coming up to me, and I have no idea what I said really, but because it wasn't me. It was like I was being used to give this amazing message to this room full of 200 or so people, and going through the receiving line, they're all like looking at me like, wow, that was so beautiful. Like they don't even know what I said, but it was so incredibly beautiful. Everybody was really shook by this message. And, I kind of knew then at 38 that, wow, there's an ability I have because I'm so able to surrender, to let go and be used as a mouthpiece, that I'll be really good at this. And so I remember even kind of thinking for the first time that what Rena had told me way back when I was 22 about my destiny to be this great spiritual teacher, that's how it works. By becoming nothing, by becoming empty, by becoming useful, any of us can do great things. And I remember thinking to myself later in my life that this would be the secret that I would share, that our training for greatness is really this process of one devastation after another, where we become nothing, but our willingness to serve makes the teaching that would come through us great, because we're not running interference patterns like, oh, look at me, like I'm doing this for money or doing this for fame or whatever. So there was a few more devastations yet to come. I had to go to India at the age of 40, a really stupid idea. but that was something that was part of the program, that I would be on my deathbed in India, just utterly devastated. I mean, the trip to India, if I had any pride or arrogance left before I went to India, it was utterly gone. When I came back from India, I mean, obviously I survived, but I was on deathbed for 3 days with 107 fever. I mean, my brain has been so badly fried by a number of these experiences, near-death experiences, that there's nothing left up there. So that makes me a pretty happy person, Forrest Gump kind of happy.